Thank you for listening to the Maker in the Mix podcast, where we discuss design, innovation, and all things concrete.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I got my dog scratching himself in the background. That's Bosco.
Good morning,
for those
folks.
Of you watching video. But yeah, welcome to episode, what is this, 19, I believe, of the Maker in the Mix. So we're getting up there, about to hit 20. Excited about that. Okay, I'm gonna have to let you out. Let me let him out of the room real fast. Come on, Bosco.
Dogs,
Go.
yeah, so my dogs are barking in the background. You may or may not hear them, but you'll hear them eventually.
Oh man, what's been going on with you, Jeff? What's new in the world of?
So, last week we were talking a little bit about some of the projects I'm working on, and one of the conversations that we had begun to talk about, and I want to kind of finish up and present the results, are we're talking about Alpha Polymer, and we've talked about the role of polymer a lot, so I'm not going to get back into that. But one thing that I've noticed about my dry polymer that's different from other dry polymers and other polymers in general is that when it's mixed into concrete, you can't really tell it's there. Like, it doesn't feel like it's there. It's not sticky. It has no odor. You really can't even see it.
Right.
But you can measure its effects. And what I wanted to do was, like, a lot of folks use CementAll to make pieces, either in conjunction with white Portland cement for white pieces or brighter colored pieces, or exclusively they only use CementAll or Rapidset type CSA cement.
And I don't know that I've ever mixed the two.
You don't
generally
mix
advocate for it.
Like, no, I'm not saying mix them. I'm saying if you want to make a white piece, use white-based Portland concrete.
I misunderstood.
Or if you're going to do Rapidset, no, you never ever mix the two. That's bad juju. You don't. So
you're saying mixing them in your business, not in your business.
You have two separate product streams. Some are made with Portland cement. Some are made with CSA. They're not. I
understand. I apologize.
They're not blended. No. That's not what I meant. So for many years, I have advocated that using polymer in CementAll is a good thing. And I had very good reasons for that. And this all based on, when everybody got started with using GFRC, they predominantly used, they only used liquid polymers because only liquid polymers were on the market. And we're talking, 15 years ago? More than that? So predominantly Forton, and another brand in the U.S. is Polyplex, and there's a couple other house brands. So the reason why I advocated for it has to do with, again, curing, right? So with Portland cement, the whole chemical reaction occurs pretty slowly. It's a process that you think about in terms of days and weeks.
Right.
And in conventional concrete, we're talking construction, your 7-day strength is roughly, and I'm going to wave my hands figuratively and literally, roughly 50% of your ultimate compressive strength. It varies, right? And then your 28-day strength, if it's properly cured, is approximately 90 to 95% of your ultimate strength. So typically a 28-day strength is very convenient from a construction progress standpoint because things generally don't happen fast. I mean, look at any road project. Look how slow it goes. And there are very good reasons for that. Don't think that they're just dragging their feet. There's a lot of stuff going on that you're not aware of.
Yeah, but it's still really annoying.
It's super annoying. Especially because it has to happen in warm weathers when, in the summer when everybody's on vacation trying to go someplace, like, they got the road closed out. Yeah. Well, with CSA cement, the chemical reaction occurs very, very quickly, and that's why we use it.
Right.
So in general, and this is sort of a very rough way of thinking, you get 28-day strengths in 24 hours. So whatever happens in one day for Portland cement happens in 1 hour for CSA cement. It's not a 1-to-1, but that's a good way to think about it.
Concept.
A good concept. And just like with
and you got to think too. I mean, getting into the weeds of like what are they calling 28-day strengths?
Exactly.
What are they basing that on?
Yeah. Is it 3,000 psi? Is it 10,000 psi? Is it whatever? Right? Pick a number. Throw a dart. So I'm not going to get into like comparing what A does versus what B does or anything like that. I'm just talking about in general, big, broad brush.
If you do want to know about CSA reactions, we do have a podcast on that. I don't remember what episode, but I can go look it up. So
it's before this one, obviously. Yes. Anyway, so with CSA cement, the chemical reaction occurs very, very quickly. Generally speaking, you're going to have, depending on how much you retard it, your environmental conditions, it's going to start kicking off anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour after you add water to it. Mm-hmm. Now, it could be slower, it could be quicker, but those are the rough time frames. And then once the chemical reaction occurs, once it gets physically not goopy soft, I call it thumbnail hardware. If you can still dent it with your thumbnail, like that's kind of like that really hard trowel stage where you're trying to finish up. It's like hard clay. It's still not a solid. Once it gets past that, and that's when the chemical reaction really starts to kick in. That's where it starts to generate heat. Now, it still makes, I don't honestly know if it makes more heat than Portland, but what it does is it makes a lot of heat really quickly, whereas Portland makes heat but more slowly. So if you could trap 100% of the heat that it generated and measure the total quantity of heat that it made, I don't know if that'd be the same as Portland or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is as CSA cement reacts, it creates a lot of heat really quickly, and that heat has to go someplace. So if you're casting a really thin panel that's big, it's going to radiate that heat pretty quickly. So the concrete itself may not get super hot. It'll get warm, but it's not going to get super hot. And if you're casting something thicker, like let's say you're going to make a cube of concrete, there's a lot of volume and not a lot of surface area to radiate that heat. So that block of concrete, even though it may be the same weight of concrete, because it's a different shape, it's going to trap more of that heat, and that block of concrete is going to get really, really hot. I think the highest temperature I've ever measured was like 160, 170 degrees.
And I don't know if you remember that. Well, I'm sure you remember it, but thinking about at the Legends of Rock event, we made that big, massive, 16-foot cantilever post-tension table, and I have a Corian table, and it's funny. I didn't really think about this before we cast it, and then it occurred to me in the moment that I walked into the shop. If any of you have ever had experience with Corian as a surface material, you cannot put like a crock pot on it for any real length of time. It will crack violently. Okay,
it's a pretty brittle plastic,
and it's a great material for casting, but keep it cool. And I just didn't even think about this when I cast essentially a 16-foot crock pot, because the
we had a pretty massive
beam is 6 inches wide at the peak. It's 9 inches tall, and then the 1.25 inches of concrete that is the face of the table, not that big a deal. But the center, it put a fat crack all the way across my 6-foot table.
That got hot. Got hot.
Now, the good news is Corian is infinitely repairable. So by Tuesday of the week after class, I was casting again. So not a huge deal. But
it cracked while under the slab, after the slab had hardened, of course. But when we demolded it, we could see sort of a shadow of where that crack was in the concrete. It wasn't a big deal, but yeah, things get hot. And the whole point of this is, and this is intuitive. If you want to dry something out, you get it hot. That's why hair dryers exist, right? Well, if you cast a piece of concrete that, and all concrete, right, CSA included, needs water to keep that chemical reaction going.
Right.
And
which is why the minimum in CementAll is 0.35.
Yeah,
As,
the chemical reaction needs a lot more moisture for that the chemistry, although it's similar to, there goes my phone again. I forgot to
it's
silence it.
telling him that the podcast should be recording soon.
Yes, exactly. Brain fart here. So the because a chemical reaction happens so fast and it needs moisture, if it gets really hot, right, what you're supposed to do with CSA cement is you need to keep that wet. Like put a hose on it, keep it wet. You're not putting water back in the concrete, but you're cooling it off for one, so that water is a cooling agent, and it's keeping that surface from drying out.
Yeah.
And as we all know or should know, concrete that dries out shrinks. So if your concrete is cooking itself and it's drying out and you're not doing anything to prevent that, and covering it with plastic doesn't always work because the moisture is still coming out to some extent, that moisture loss is going to cause surface cracks and it could cause curling. And it depends on, the thickness of the piece and the shape of the piece and all that. I've seen it where you get the face, the good side face, if you underhydrate it or you let it dry out, it looks like you dripped oil on it. You get these little dark spots here and there.
I've seen that. I saw somebody post that about something like that on I think Facebook forum recently.
Yeah. So advocating for, I don't use polymer, I've never had a problem. Anecdotal seat of the pants kind of recommendations like that are contrary to good practices, especially the practices put forth by the manufacturer. Like Rapidset says, wet cure it. Right? If you choose not to do that, and then you make public statements that say, hey, you don't have to do that, and you really have no basis for that other than your anecdotal experience that may or may not be comprehensive, you are giving people bad advice that creates problems for them, and they don't know why it's happening because they have a tiny piece of a distorted picture. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. And a lot of people don't like to hear this because they want to do what they want to do. It's concrete makes its own rules, right? We're just interpreters. Like I've said this in class, and if you've ever been in class, I don't say it all the time, but I'm just a translator, right? Concrete, when you make things with concrete, it does its own thing. It has its own rules. It speaks its own language. And when you don't do what it needs to have done, when you don't do what it wants to have done, it tells you. It cracks, it curls, it does things you don't want it to do. And learning how to read that, learning how to understand that is part of becoming a master of your material. Well, if you can have somebody who already knows those things and can translate that for you, that's where deep knowledge paired with experience comes into play. Experience without knowledge is saying, I don't need to wet cure my concrete. I've never had a problem. Well, you're only reporting positive things. You're probably not going to be reporting the negative things. So it's already biased. Anyway, the reason why I say I use polymer in CementAll is that what's the role of polymer? Hold moisture in. So I can now put polymer in my concrete, my CementAll, not have to wet cure it. I can simply cover it in plastic and not have any problems at all. Because what's the role of the polymer? To hold moisture in. It keeps that concrete from drying itself out.
Well, and if you really want to see how much moisture CementAll needs and what the effects are on the surface of a countertop of very, very fast drying, go use Portland and do like a thick hand pressed something or other, or a marbled something or other, or just do a face coat or do a thick face coat, and then use Rapidset with no retarder as your backer, the face will crack all over the place. I promise you, pretty much guaranteed. Yeah. It will crack everywhere. And also, just a note, if you try that, just anecdotally, for fun, don't use citric acid. Don't use citric acid because it will retard the absolute crap out of the Portland, and the Portland will never set.
Citric acid is an incredibly powerful retarder for Portland cement, and you can use it, but you have to use it in very, very small doses because it is very powerful. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, there's a bug on my plate glass window, and I need to kill it. Instead of swatting it with a fly swatter, you've got a sledgehammer. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to be really careful. But generally, I say don't do that. But getting back to the polymer in CSA, with Forton, a lot of people have used it, and a lot of people don't like it because it's very sticky. It makes it very difficult to, trowel your concrete. It's sticky. We've already talked about how it when not cast through a pump sprayer, it can be foamy because it traps a lot of foam. The polymer is great for making stable foam. Well, I did some tests. Let's see, today's the August 2nd. So not quite 2 weeks ago, I made some CementAll samples. I went to Home Depot, bought a fresh bag of CementAll, and I made 2 separate samples, both identical, with the only difference, one used the recommended dose of Alpha Polymer in it, and one didn't. And I ran flexural tests, so I did 24-hour tests. So the recipe was CementAll, straight CementAll. I put a little tiny bit of pigment in it just to differentiate the 2 samples. I always do that so that I don't mix up two samples that are the same color can be easily mixed up if I don't label them properly. But I always put a tiny bit of pigment just to tint them.
You've done thousands of samples. How do you have thousands of different colors? Like, how do you keep thinking of, I haven't used this pigment yet?
I don't because I don't keep them. Whenever I do a batch, like let's say I do 4 different samples, which is a lot for me. I'll do like a red, a yellow, a green, and a blue. Or I'll do a gray, a green, a tan, and some other color. It's just whatever I have on hand. Right? And literally I'm putting a teaspoon of color in 20 pounds of concrete. It's just a tiny, tiny amount. I never use any super colors or anything that is going to have a great potent effect.
So these are just your standard
red oxide, green oxide.
Oxides and
just your standard run-of-the-mill, basic pigments just to tint them. So CementAll, water cement ratio 0.36, citric acid dose of 0.2%, which is a pretty common, you're going to get roughly 20-30 minutes of work time on that, more than enough to do what you need to do in moderate temperatures. And 19 mil. All my tests are 19 millimeter glass fibers at 3%. Now I have done other fibers at other doses, and I lost you visually, but
I'm still here, so it'll show up.
That was basic. Oh, that's good. So basically, your very generic CementAll GFRC mix, very standard, nothing fancy. I also did, I added 0.2% of alpha fluidizer, our super plasticizer. And I did that because I wanted to ensure that these samples were going to be very fluid to cast. Turns out they weren't, but I'll get back to that in a second. The sample without any polymer in it, what most people would consider, that's what they would make stuff out of. You could spray it, you could hand pack it, you could pour it. It's what they make stuff. I don't use polymer approach. My 1-day flexural tests, and when I make a sample, I make a 14 by 14 inch sample, cut those into 6 segments. And this is all per an ASTM test for fiber reinforced concrete. And each of those samples, 3 of those are tested good side up, or like cast side up, and the other 3 are cast side down, so you can see a bias. And then you take the average of those 6 values. So you're going to get a range between the highest and lowest, and then you take the average of that. So the average of those 6 samples with no polymer in it, the 24-hour flexural strength was 1,279 psi, which is pretty good. Not great, but pretty good.
Right.
The same sample made, well, the same next sample
same
B,
bag of concrete
with 3.5. Same bag of concrete. Same bag of concrete, same 0.36 water cement ratio, same everything except I added 3.5% alpha polymer. First, you couldn't really tell visually or from feeling it that there was polymer in it.
Now it probably consolidated
actually
better.
You could.
And
it
felt
flowed
denser.
It flowed a little bit better. Well, during casting, the only way you could tell is it kind of flowed a little bit better than the sample without. The flexural test and the density were much greater. So I got almost 50% more strength using polymer than not using polymer. The flexural strength, the average flexural strength was, where is it? 1,885. So 1,885 versus 1,279. Almost a 600 psi difference. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot if you think in terms of compressive strength, but if you think like regular sidewalk concrete with aggregate, no fibers or anything like that, the average flexural strength for stuff like that, of course, you could never ever cast it really thin, is probably 300-400 psi, right? So
let's compare it to something. Can you compare it to something that we have a frame of reference for?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us have used.
So, a lot of folks have used the Buddy Rhodes blended mix, and they have published. They're one of the few companies who actually have published data, and that's something that I eventually will have when I have a complete product line. Let me get their data sheet on here. I just saved it. I'm trying to look it up so I have the numbers. Come on, where are they?
You can hear my kids out the window. They're leaving for their school has a camp this week, so they're doing that this week.
Oh, how fun. There we go. Okay. So the tech data sheet for Buddy Rhodes published, and you can get this on their website. Their 1-day flexural strength. So this is where all my tests are 1 day. For that is 1,010 psi. So it's a little bit, CementAll with no polymers, a little bit better than the Buddy Rhodes at 1 day. The Buddy Rhodes at 7 days is 1,280 psi. So CementAll, that particular bag at 1 day is basically the same as the 7-day Buddy Rhodes flexural strength. And then the Buddy Rhodes flexural strength at 28 days, which, long term, is 1,460 psi, right? Almost 1,500 psi. With Alpha Polymer, I made CementAll get 50% more strength, and it's now more than 400 psi, even greater than Buddy Rhodes at 28 days. I know that's a lot of words and all that, but there is a clear benefit to using polymer. Not just, hey, I don't have to stand around wetting these things. Oh, and the way I cured it is I did what everybody does. I just covered it in plastic. Like that's, I didn't sit around and wet it and anything like that. I just covered it in plastic.
Well, you're using more than just plastic, right? Aren't you? Well, maybe not for CementAll, but
in this it was just
Portland.
plastic.
You've got a couple of different blankets and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
If I'm curing Portland, what I'll do is I'll, cover it in plastic, and then I have that just because I have it. Like I don't know if it does anything or not, but they sell it as radiant barrier, and heat is, it's there to reflect heat. So I just stick that on top. It's cheap. You can reuse it. And then I throw moving blankets on it because I have them. I'll do like 2 or 3. A lot of that's just to make sure the plastic gets held down properly, so I'm not losing moisture.
But it's trapping heat too, and that's
trapping heat. Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like your room is cold and you get in bed and you want to be warm, you put on a couple more blankets, right? I'm not putting 300 blankets on. That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to put 3, maybe 4. Not a lot. I mean, you don't have to be crazy about it.
Basically what you're saying is with Rapidset, the alpha, pretty much alpha by itself. Now, one thing you also noticed was certain liquid super plasticizers actually detract from the strength. Is that correct?
Well, I actually made 3 samples. One with no polymer, one with polymer, Alpha Polymer, both identical. Like both use, and the difference was the 2 common things that were outside of water and fibers was
fluidizer.
Fluidizer. I used 0.2% fluidizer, which is a very low dose.
Yeah, and fluidizer has not been shown to detract from strength at all.
No, not at all. And I was trying to make this concrete fluid because this particular batch of CementAll was a little bit, I'll call it ornery. CementAll has a mild super plasticizer blended into it.
But it's not consistent.
It's not consistent. Sometimes you get a lot and it doesn't take much water to make it really, call it juicy, really fluid. And other times it's more pasty because there's not a lot of it in there. And I happened to get a bag where it was more pasty. So it never really was pourable on its own. So I added a little bit of fluidizer to kind of kick it, but I didn't want to overdo it and segregate it. And I was kind of guessing, so I was like, a little bit is better than a lot. So when I cast it, I poured it out of the bucket, but it didn't flow out. It was not self-consolidating. I had to, spread it with a trowel, and then I shook the samples. And once I was shaking it and tapping it, then it flowed out, right? So
I'm using a bigger dose of alpha than you are, or you were in that instance. I think you use more than me generally, but
yeah. But in this case, I wanted to use a very, very small amount because I did not want it to influence anything. So a very small amount, just enough to make it so it could flow out. The third sample, I wanted to do it where, let me get my facts straight, because again, this was 2 weeks ago and I've had a lot going on. Okay, so the third sample used Alpha Polymer in it, which has a defoamer in it. I'll come back to that. But I did not use fluidizer to make it fluid. I used Adva 555 to make it fluid. So without any polymer, without any super plasticizer whatsoever, this mix was very stiff. It was not dry, but it was, you could pack it up the side of the bucket and it would stay. I had to add 1.25% Adva 555 to get the equivalent workability that
0.2% fluidizer?
0.2% fluidizer. Okay. So I had to use 6 times more super plasticizer just to get the same workability. And that made it more foamy. But more importantly, that very high dose, and I'm not 100% sure what the maximum recommended dose of Adva 555 is. 1.25% is a lot, right? That killed my strength, my 1 day. So Alpha Polymer in CementAll with fluidizer, flexural strength 1885. CementAll with the same amount of Alpha Polymer, but with 1.25% Adva 555. My flexural strength was 1,206.
Ouch.
I lost more than 600 PSI in flexural strength just by using too much of the wrong super plasticizer. Now, don't get me wrong, Adva 555 is a wonderful super plasticizer. But if you're trying to make something really fluid, the answer is not just to dump more in, because you will sacrifice a lot of strength doing that. My test results bear that out. And that's why I did it, is if the strengths were kind of comparable, you're like, all right, you just use more. But I see so many people do that. I've been in lots of people's shops. I've seen, you got the squirt bottle and you're just adding more. I want to make it more fluid, so you add a bigger squirt. Mm-hmm. That is you can really be hurting your concrete by doing that. And that is specifically why I developed fluidizer, is you don't use more of something that's weak. You use something really potent and you use just what you need.
Right.
So the moral of the story is Alpha Polymer absolutely, not only does it not have any bad effects in CementAll, it gives you almost 50% more strength. Fluidizer, as being in the most powerful plasticizer I have ever seen, gives you workability without sacrificing strength and
And it's
using.
pretty long lasting too. I mean, it'll keep.
It's not a quickie go away kind of thing. It's made for making concrete fluid, and so if you want to make direct cast, SCC, pourable concrete, whatever you want to call it, if you're not using fluidizer, you're probably sacrificing potential strength of your concrete, because you're probably having to use too much. Like when you make, we're talking about Portland now, when you make Portland cement based GFRC, you're using what, 0.35% fluidizer?
Well, and anecdotally, I've used a bunch of different super plasticizers. I've used, I'm not going to name them all, but I've used a couple of different powdered plasticizers from several different companies, not just the ones from bigger companies. And I had to use double of every powdered plasticizer. I had to use double to get a similar effect. Whereas, and then don't even talk about the liquid super plasticizers.
Liquids are convenient because they disperse really fast and they don't clump when you put them in water.
Not as powerful.
But they're never as powerful because they're diluted, like that, to be made a liquid.
So, definitely. And the double number wasn't just I think I used about double. It was like 40 grams versus 80 grams. I meassured it out. And
I don't want, I hope folks don't think that we're trying to, turn this into a commercial.
No, but it's really exciting to discover these things, because this is kind of new information for us as well.
It is.
We knew it was good, but we didn't know it was that good.
This is going to be a weird way of describing this, so just bear with me. This is how I think of investigating concrete and looking at the effects of different mix designs or different fibers or different admixtures or whatever, right? It's kind of like you're looking for something you dropped into a puddle of water or a pool of water, but you can't see because the pool of water is murky. So you're feeling around blindly and you bump into things and you discover things and you're looking for something, right? And you hope you're going to find you dropped your keys, right? You're in a boat, you dropped your keys and the water's shallow enough that you could reach the bottom, but you can't see the bottom. It's totally murky. And you're going to start discovering things that you weren't anticipating. Hopefully, there's nothing that's going to come out and bite you, right? But it could. And hopefully, you're going to find, ideally, exactly what you're going to looking for quickly. But along the lines, you're going to learn things. And when we all, as artisans or makers or whatever label we want to put on ourselves, measure out our ingredients and put them in a bucket and stir them up and dump them into a form and demold a piece, our observations are very far removed from what's actually happening. We're kind of seeing the end result of a long chain of different causes and effects. So for instance, the sample, that CementAll sample that I made that did not use Alpha Polymer in it, it was just plain. It's bulk density. So if let's say I made here's my phone. Let's say I made a block of concrete thicker than this, but let's say I made a block of concrete that's
you got a new phone.
Yeah, I got a new phone. Yeah.
How is it?
I love it. It's a phone.
Yeah.
I'll measure its length, its thickness, and its width, at several points. Take the average so I know I have a good sense of its volume. Like, really, how big is this? And then I weigh it. So if this weighs a certain amount, 200 grams, 300 grams, whatever, and I know its volume, I can divide its weight by its volume. Or is it volume by weight? Pounds per cubic foot. So it's weight divided by volume. Too early, right?
Too early, and you're not looking at your notebook.
I get a bulk density. So a bulk density is just how much weight versus how much volume, and it accounts for everything that's in there, including the air, right? So if you think about like a balloon is like 99% air. So it's got a lot of volume, but not a lot of weight. So its bulk density is very, very low because it's like 1 gram per however big that balloon is. Huge. Whereas a chunk of, say, lead has a very high bulk density because, A, there's probably no air in it, but it's very, very heavy for its small volume. And bulk density is kind of that's how we feel. You make a chunk of concrete, your slab of concrete that you make fills the forms, and it weighs a certain amount. So you have to make a certain amount of concrete to fill that volume. It's kind of what we work with in the real world. Well, the bulk density of CementAll with no polymer in it was, again, I want to quote the right numbers here, 123 pounds per cubic foot. Again, not terrible. The sample with polymer was 134. So it doesn't sound like a big change, but the theoretical maximum of GFRC, if you took out all the air and you just looked at what's
sticking in a vacuum chamber kind of thing.
In a vacuum chamber, getting all the air, there's no voids in it. This is theoretical. It's like 138. So we're already close to that, which means we don't have a lot of trapped air in there. Now, there's always going to be some air in it. You can never make concrete with no air in it unless you do put it in a vacuum chamber, which is, nobody does that. It's inconvenient. But if you can make a concrete mix that naturally purges its air, that's why you want to make it fluid. That's why I want to make it fluid, so I can get the air out. Well, not using polymer, not using my polymer, made a big difference. Now, I've done the same tests last year with CementAll with 4-ton. So
way foamier.
So not only I had 2 observations of using CementAll with 4-ton. I saw no significant difference in strength.
Interesting. So I guess that this is an interesting sort of juxtaposition, right? Yeah. Because that sort of confirms, in theory, that theoretically confirms a lot of the people who are like, oh, I don't want to use polymer because their only frame of reference is 4-ton, which in your observations is not increasing the strength.
Right.
Nor is it tracking the strength. So that's interesting.
In this one, this was done last May 3rd. So sample B, CementAll 0.36, no 4-ton. It's 7-day. Now these are 7-day strengths, not 1-day strength. So the 7-day strength was 1,675 psi. Different bag, of course. Bulk density 126, so pretty close. 5% 4-ton dose made on the same day. 7-day flexural strength of 1,620, so tiny bit. Now averages, the difference, this is like 55 psi. The averages can swing a lot more, so that's in the noise. So maybe it's close, maybe you can't really put too fine a point on that.
Near as makes no difference as
density, however, it's a lot more accurate. 118, so it dropped. Not a ton, but it dropped. So because it shows that 4-ton's a little bit more foamy.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good, because most people out there are like, oh, well, 4-ton is polymer. Polymer is 4-ton. It's kind of like Kleenex or tissue, right? So, if you were to start saying, let's say you have a beard and you're wiping your nose and you get a bunch of like Kleenex crud on your mustache, right? Well, all tissues do that, but maybe there's one that doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think
making broad generalizations based on your experience with only one product is a little dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe dangerous is the wrong word.
Well, it's limiting. It's short-sighted.
It's short-sighted, and it could really hamstring you from achieving something better. Like if you really, let's say you want to make something, a cool piece of furniture, and you want to make it thinner because, well, it's thinner is lighter, right? But every time you tried doing the way you normally do it, it breaks because your concrete isn't strong enough. And the way you get around that is you make it thicker. Well, if you can very easily make your concrete stronger, measurably stronger, significantly stronger, maybe you can start doing designs you can't do now.
Right.
Maybe you can start demolding with more confidence now. So it has some real impacts on.
Well, that's one of the reasons for years I've used CementAll as a primary, because it gave me a lot more confidence. Now I had to overcome the fact that it's tan, from a color perspective, and I've developed most of my color palette around that. But that was one of the biggest reasons that I chose to use it, was because the blended mix designs that I was using, which I like using blended mix designs, and I've been from scratch for a while with Portland, but I primarily use Rapidset, which will be changing soon. I actually am, which is what I'm getting to, is I was much more confident flipping the Rapidset pieces because I knew they were stronger.
Right.
And with all this testing you're doing, and with my experience with the Alpha products, and we're turning this into a commercial kind of, and but it's worth bearing out because I'm blown away. I mean, I'm making 1/2-inch panels that are 5 feet by 5 feet, and there's almost no flex to them the next day. Whereas even with Rapidset, you flip them, there's a little bit of like, they're really hard. It's unbelievable how hard. And that's, again, anecdotal, but it really, and then the data is showing that what I'm experiencing is happening on a technical level too. And so
that's an excellent point, Caleb. Personal observation is real. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dismiss it, but you can only take that so far because there's no metric. It's very subjective. It's very contextual. It's very specific to the conditions.
Your personal experience.
Yeah. And then it's also specific to your personal experience and your personal biases and prejudices. Whereas having a machine, even though it's a homemade machine, it's made with the same design characteristics as a commercial machine, right? So it's not made on machine metal, et cetera, but it does the same thing, serves the same function. And I've done comparisons to make sure that my machine is producing the same kind of results with the same consistency and the same accuracy as a commercial $50,000 test machine. So it's not just I'm putting a 5-gallon bucket on a couple 2x4s and calling that a machine. No, it's a lot more specific to that. The thing about measuring is the machine has no prejudice, has no bias. Right. It does one thing and it spits out a result. Now, I have to prepare the samples properly. I have to test them properly. I can't just do things willy-nilly. I have to have consistency. But I am now getting closer to doing an apples to apples comparison. And that's where I start making the water clearer so I can start honing in and seeing results that aren't skewed by my opinions or my perceptions or something that I'm not even aware of. It gives me the ability to be more objective and isolate the phenomena I'm seeing, whether my concrete gets denser or it gets more foamy or it's weaker, or it's stronger, or it's more brittle, or it's more ductile. All these things are manifestations of a machine doing something to concrete, and I'm not involved at all.
Well, it's in a totally kind of separate sphere of personal observation. I think we can have these perceptions about reality, about the way other people are, the way that life is, the way whatever, that are only driven by our perception of it, or our biases, or our personal experience, and they're being influenced. So it's really funny. So yesterday, I was in Detroit, Michigan, on an install, and I was planning on shipping. It was a coffee table, a bench, and a dining table, and I did it because the designer is partnering with me on another project that I'm working on, and so it's one of his clients, and so you do things a little bit out of your zone to help your help your friends out, and
Right.
and
build good relationships. That's how to
build good relationships. But I was planning on shipping these pieces, okay? And then I discovered that there was I use freightquote.com, which if any of you listening like to ship things, they're great.
I've used that before.
Really, really good experience with them over 3.5-4 years now. And I've worked with the same rep. So if you're going to ship a lot, get a rep. Don't do the online thing. My rep is Kyle. He's amazing. But anyway, neither here nor there. YRC Yellow Freight just kind of imploded last week.
Yeah.
I haven't read a ton of reports on what happened, but I got the information before it was public because they're involved with the shipping companies, and they had to stop using YRC, which doubled my shipping costs and made it take longer. And then on top of that, my client didn't have enough people to get stuff off of a truck. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've got these pieces ready. I need to get them out of my shop. So I said, screw it. I'll drive them. 9-hour drive from here to Michigan to Detroit. Not horrible. So we left yesterday, or I'm sorry, we left Monday afternoon. Got into Detroit area very late Monday night, spent the night, and then delivered, and then drove home yesterday. And it's just, I think it's funny because I was listening to something on the way, and I promise I'm going somewhere. I'm listening to something on the way, and I discovered something about myself, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's news to me. But did you know, this is obviously 100% factual, did you know that my dad pays for everything?
Does he?
Yeah, apparently. This is news, right? I'm totally. I guess I need to call him and get some money because he must not know either.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's very funny. But again, it's your perception of things, right? I think some people might be, oh, Caleb's part of the ownership of CCI now. He can't be, he can't be doing this on his own. Daddy must pay for it, right?
Right. That must be coming from a very insecure person.
I just don't know I don't know why that needed to be insinuated anywhere. Who cares, right? Like, he didn't, first of all. I would love to. Let's bring Dad on the podcast, shall we?
That would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice? The last time my parents paid for anything for me was my very first car when I graduated from high school. And the deal was they buy me the car and I pay for the insurance and the gas from there on in. And
my dad bought me a really nice bottle of bourbon for Christmas last year.
Yeah. I have, it's
he buys lunch occasionally, I have a great relationship with my dad, but he doesn't pay for my life.
But you are fully self-made.
Well, he's got his own stuff to pay for. And it's funny because people assume, oh, he's a retired judge. He must be just filthy rich. And it's so funny because judges really don't make as much money as people think they do.
Right.
I have an acute experience of that, because everybody was like, oh, your dad must do so well. And I'm like,
honest
we're
judges,
not like squandering, but also
honest judges aren't.
Huh?
Honest judges. right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So anyway, if you want to know how I have just so much money that I'm living in a house that's buried in the 90s and I'm not renovating it all at once, it's because Daddy pays for everything.
Yep. That must be it.
I forgot to text him. I need to call him and tell him he pays for everything. I wonder what he'll say.
We should have him on and have him comment about that.
We should. Well, it'd be actually okay. Total seriousness, it would be fun to have Dad on because he has a lot of I imagine he'd have a lot of things to offer from a very different perspective. Because
what was his like legal specialty?
When he was before he became a judge, when he was he did mostly corporate litigation. And what's interesting about that is a field you can make a ton of money in. But when I was very young, so Dad started at a firm called Steele, Hector and Davis. I don't know if it's still around or not. I assume it is, but it was in Miami and then Tallahassee. I was born in Miami.
Everything.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, man, I'm going to go read the transcript now. So when we moved to Orlando when I was 5, I guess, he got a job with a firm, and then the guy the partner who he was working for, it's a private firm, corporate litigation, the guy ended up going to jail for fraud of some kind. It was and Dad had thankfully resigned right before that. And he went to work for the county attorney's office in Orange County, Florida, in Orlando. And part of the reason he did that was because he worked so much that he never saw my sister and I or my mom. And so he wanted to have a life that involved like family, I don't know. And so he quit a career. I mean, he had made partner at one of his firms, and there was a year or two where he did very well on referral fees and things like that. But he quit all of that because he wanted to be home with the family. And so he worked for the county attorney's office doing their corporate litigation. So he actually fought, in 15 years of being attorney prior to being a judge, he actually never lost a case. So I'm very proud of my dad for a lot of things. But then he became he was appointed to the criminal bench in Central Florida. And, the thing is, you can look all of these, like if you actually are interested in facts, you can look up all of the salaries of judges. Absolutely, yeah. Because it's public. And so you can see what kind of income I grew up on, right? It wasn't poor, but it wasn't certainly what we were not. We were the least affluent members of our family. Let's just put it that way. And then he became an appellate court judge on the 5th District Court of Appeals in Central Florida, and then he was appointed to the Florida Supreme Court, which again I'm super proud of. He's a phenomenally talented jurist, and then he retired and actually just recently opened up his own appellate practice law firm in Florida.
Good for him.
So I imagine he'd have a lot actually to offer as far as, just insight into
absolutely
different realms. So, I mean, it'd be kind of fun to just have him on anyway, because he's starting a business for the first time in his career, which is fun and interesting to kind of have that as a camaraderie topic.
Right.
But no, Dad doesn't pay for my life. It would be nice, but he doesn't. I'm very proud of him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't want my life to be handed to me. That would not be, that's just not very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So anyway, all jokes aside, I'm gonna text Dad and see if he would come on at a later date. I think we're supposed to have Bob Chatterton on soon.
Yeah.
So I need to text him and get information on when that'll happen. So we should start having some guests. What do you think?
I like that. I like that idea. I think your dad could comment on contracts.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. He's helped me with mine on several occasions. And it's funny because he's very, very modest. He'll be like, well, this is not my area of expertise. But he's like
but you're a lawyer. So
at least you freaking dictionary. It's ridiculous. But anyway, he's helped me and a business partner in another project form a company. So he's kind of getting into some more things now that he's not a judge and it's not a moral conflict or a ethical conflict. So guests. I have a financial guy that would be really cool to have on as well.
Definitely. I've never had to do this, but talk about like business loans and things like that. Getting advice for some folks. I know over the years, as people's businesses grow, right? I started in a garage. My 2-car garage was part of my house, and then I got out of that and I leased a shop, which I still lease a shop. My career choice, my career path has deviated quite radically from the path that most people take. Like yours is just starting to take that same deviation.
It is.
Well,
in about the same time frame as you did, actually. Kind of funny.
So, I fabricated 100% of the time for almost 7 years. And toward the tail end of that, that's when I started CCI. This was back in 2004 or 5, or back in the midst of time, almost 20 years ago. And in that time, I've always had shops. The smallest shop I had was like a 1,800 square foot shop. My biggest shop was a 7,000 square foot shop. But I've never owned a shop because it takes a lot to like buy a building and you're committed, right? And then at the point of time where I was considering that, that's when I formed CCI and got into teaching as my primary business. So there wasn't any need to own a big building that was centered around manufacturing. So it's a very, very different topic. But, when you're considering doing something like that, finding the right kind of construction loan, do you buy an existing building? Do you buy land and build? What does it take? I don't know. I've never been through that. So I don't know what are the pearls of wisdom that you need to take away from that. But, somebody who is involved in that might be somebody that people want to hear about. So if that's something you want to hear about, let us know and we'll find a way to, have them talk about that, because the more you understand about your business, the more you're going to be successful. It's not about what cool colors you can make or how do you hold a trowel or whatever fancy finish de jour. That's not what it takes to be successful. That's the icing on the cake. How do you create the bones of a business to be successful? The procedures, the processes, the choices of product lines, the materials you're using. Are you using a very, very expensive mix that costs you a lot of money just because, well, it's easy? Maybe that makes sense for you, but maybe that's not the best decision for you. Just like maybe a from scratch mix makes a lot of sense for somebody because they have all the raw ingredients.
Maybe it doesn't make sense for somebody else. I mean, I think everybody's different, and there's not a single solution for every single person. No. It's interesting. Traveling a lot, you talk a lot, and I had my shop foreman with me, Jay, and we were talking about this kind of. I mean, it's realistically a very small thing. This industry, we'll call it, and
we're in a puddle.
Yeah, and it was funny because I was asking him what he thought about our podcast, and we've listened to other things, and he's one thing that I want to avoid. And I think people see it, right? People can kind of pick up on these little nuances that maybe others don't realize they're picking up on. And what I don't want is to become an echo chamber. I don't want to, do this to like
cure ourselves.
I don't want my audience to be myself. You know what I mean? I want to bring value to. I mean, we're focused on this industry, but if if we can bring in outside of industry experts that have a field of knowledge that is beneficial to what we are doing, whether it's finance or the legal field, or if we could bring in a general contractor and an architect. I mean, having those kind of guests, I think would get us out of our own echo chamber. And not that we're in one. I think we're, really exploring the topics that we have yet to talk about publicly. And that's kind of where a lot of our topics are coming from. But, when you get 60, 70 episodes in and it's still just this, that would be something I don't want to see. I really want to see this podcast kind of evolve to where we're bringing outsiders in. And, certainly it's great to have artisans on and talk about their experiences, because that's a camaraderie thing. And I want some of that. Absolutely. But I think, getting some outsiders into our conversation is definitely something that will broaden the horizons of, certainly not only ourselves, but hopefully our audience as well.
Mm-hmm. This is meant to be informative and educational and eye-opening.
Yeah.
Not
kind of like my eyes were open, Jeff. I mean,
yeah.
My eyes were opened, and I learned that I can call my dad and ask for a check.
Well, that's the other thing.
New day.
That's really the other thing that we're emphasizing here, and this is CCI has always been part of this, because we've been around longer than, well, pretty much anybody who's in this industry now. There are very few people left from the old days that came before me. There are a few, right? And most of them don't get on social media. They're not part of this kind of superficial craft puddle. They're doing their own thing.
Staying above the noise.
It's all about building a community. Mm-hmm. And that's a kind of a trite thing to say. Oh, I want to build a community.
Well, I would love to not learn things like that about myself that I don't know previously, from outside sources. Like, I would love for there to not be some sort of, I'm happy to exist in a field where other people also exist.
Yeah. And that, for everybody to get along, means there has to be mutual respect. And, okay, maybe we don't agree, but we can at least be professional and polite about our disagreements. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You get in any industry. Like, I used to be part of the Solid Surface Fabricators Association, and the stone fabricator. I used to speak at a Stone Expo in Vegas, and I spoke at ISSFA's, or that's too many S's.
Can we add another couple, please?
Yeah. And every industry has the bulk of people who are just, hey, all they want to do is they want to be successful. They want to do their thing. They want to be happy. And they want to feel part of a bigger whole. Like, they want to be part of a bigger group where everybody is positive and everybody's moving forward and speaking with a common voice. But you're always going to get the handful of the little bullies in the playground who want to beat their chest and say, hey, everybody look at me. I'm making the rules because I want to.
And like you say, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be, I want to be above that. And I confess that I have very much been sucked in on occasion, and it's hard not to,
It's easy to have strong opinions, especially when you're forced to react to those.
Yeah.
To that.
But I think our general bent is that we really want, like you said, mutual respect. Like, I have no problem with anybody in this industry. Truly. I mean, I don't have any, I have problems with some of the ways that some people are choosing to behave in public, and I don't love that. And if that would stop, if there was a genuine mutual, respect, and, if we could put down a shield, if you will, we would be happy. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's a new day, Jeff.
Maybe. Who knows? But that's a choice that those people have to make.
Yeah,
because they're
I
the
mean, we're
ones
making it right now. You know,
right.
I don't want to be involved in any conflict, you know, at all. And so, you know,
We want
I have respect.
yeah,
It's not mutual at the moment, I don't think, but I have, you know, I really do think that the players in this industry at large, and it's a very small industry, so if you're in the industry, you know who the players are. So I don't need to talk about them, but I truly think that the players in this industry all have something to offer.
absolutely.
And
There,
that is the tact I'm going to take when I interact with the industry. And Jeff, I know that you agree with me on that.
absolutely. Yeah, we had a pretty long conversation the other night about certain things and related to this. And you know, if we all want and need to do our own thing, right? When you're in business, your job is to, make your business grow, be successful. That means you're going to have competition. That means you're going to have people who are going to want to take your business away, and that's the nature of it. And if that's something that you don't like or can't accept, then maybe you need
Well,
to
but
find
we, you know, I
new.
mean, it's like
But,
we're
but
now,
that's what,
and I don't think it's on the website yet because we haven't received it yet. But like, you know, we recognize fully that we have competing products with Trinic, and yet because we recognize that they also have something to offer to the industry, we're offering one of their products on our website because it has a really great application. And we, you know, so we can play in the sandbox with other people. And I think that's something that's really important and it's going to be beneficial
right.
to people at large. You know what I
And
mean?
and as leaders of this industry, and being the de facto first, we've been doing it for almost 2 decades now. You have to set a good example, like lead by example, and behavior tells a lot. Words say a lot. So we
Well,
want to
you
be
know,
seen as
we want to show without necessarily saying. I mean, you know, actions are powerful,
yeah,
and you know, obviously, we are seeking to you know, live and operate with integrity and dignity, and you know, we don't want our actions to be, you know, condemnable, really. And so, there's a lot of forethought into that, you know. But when things are being made up about you, you know, it's hard. It's really hard not to react, and we and like I said, I'm guilty of. I'm human, you know. I'm guilty of reacting, um, but you know, I say it's time to put down the you know, put it down.
absolutely, yeah. And it's
So
you know we can move on from that. I want to
yeah.
get back to the shipping thing, because that's something that way back in the old days I had to do. Like 50% of my business was out of state.
Hmm.
I've shipped, a lot of people have shipped stuff, and
Hmm.
it's no fun. And the bottom line is expect stuff to break, and if it
Sure.
doesn't break, you're lucky. So this one story, this was back in the early 2001,
Hmm.
A Space Odyssey, right? 2001. I was contacted by a contractor out in Seattle, and they requested a sample from me. And it was a sample I had made. It was like a really dark, mossy green. It wasn't one of my favorite colors, but I had made it, and it was put up on my website. And they wanted a sample of it, so I made it, sent it to them, and I didn't hear from them for a while. And about 2 months later, I get a package of blueprints and documents and stuff like that, and they wanted me to do a bid on this project. And it was for a big, I guess you could call it like a weekend home. Didn't know much about it, but it was like a 5-story house, and it basically was everything but, not the kitchen countertops, but like the master bath countertops, the closet countertops. There was a
As one does.
12, and this was before GFRC, so this was all steel reinforced, not regular concrete. I did a mortar base mix. But yeah, all the same color. And eventually, I put the bid in, whatever. It was a lot, right? This was a huge project for me. Now, I'd only been in business for 2 years at the time. So this was an enormous project. One that there were lots of logistical issues that I was learning. Like I really hadn't started shipping anything yet. So this was like, how am I going to learn how to ship? How am I going to crate and stuff like that? And long story short is I got the job, and it was for a client that I was not allowed to know who it was for. But so 2001, heyday of the .com. I'm in Seattle, Washington. What company is in Seattle, Washington? This was for a house that they flew me there twice. Once to look at the job. At some point, I can't remember if it was before or after they templated it. I was not allowed to do anything. I just had to be there to observe. And then I was there to watch them install. So, this house was a 5-story. It used to be, this was a renovation. And this renovation had been going on for 2 years before I got there. And it was scheduled to go on for at least another year after I left, after my part was done. And it was originally was like a 2-story little mountain lodge on the end of a logging road in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. And it turned into this 5-story structure thing. Yeah. Had a wine cellar in it. It had the dining room was cantilevered over a river, and the floor of the dining room was glass, so you could sit at the table, look down, and see the river flowing underneath you. There were hand-polished stainless steel staircases that were made by artists, so there was lots of like metal sculpture in them, and everything was handmade and hand-polished. The river flowed down through the property, came out of the woods. It was huge. It was like, I don't fish. I'm a terrible fisherman, and I certainly don't fly fish, but from what I understand, it would be like an awesome place to fly fish. Huge boulders, big pools of water, mountain stream, river. It was about 10 feet wide. And I learned it was completely artificial. It wasn't real.
I bet they stocked it with really nice trout, though.
It looked and functioned like a real river. And you never saw the end. You never saw the beginning. And it was running the whole time. Because it has to. I mean, it's not just a static duct. It's not like a fountain. There's a lot of biological ecosystems happening in here, but it just blew me away that this level of whatever. So when I did the project, this was 4,000 pounds of concrete, 6 crates. One of the crates was pushing 13 feet long because that was a big fireplace hearth that I made. And the way I built my crates, and any of you who have any of my books, you see in the back of one of my textbooks how I built my crates. So they were all 3/4 inch plywood. There are better ways to make crates, but this is how we did it. Very, very strong crates with 2-inch thick foam all the way around, 2-inch thick foam between the concrete. So really well packed. And I didn't have a forklift, so everything had to be lift gated. Getting that big 13-foot piece was interesting. I used an engine hoist and a lift gate to get it in. And normally when I ship, just like what you were saying earlier in this podcast, Caleb, I dealt with a bunch of different freight companies. They have local places here, so I would physically walk in and start talking to somebody. Hey, this is what I want to do, and develop a relationship with them. And that's, the more you deal with a single company, the more you get better prices on things. Well, the GC is the person I contracted with. They said, my client wants to use their own shipper. They're gonna arrange everything. And normally when you, and this if you're getting into shipping, or if you already ship but you don't do this, it's extremely important to get everything fully insured. Mm-hmm. That includes not just the market, the retail price of the product, but all the time and the crate and everything like that, as much as you can, because you want to recover if you have to redo it again. Well, not only was I able to do that, I said, okay, if you're going to arrange it, this has to be fully insured, because I'm not assuming any liability for anything. As soon as it leaves my shop, I'm not liable for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it should be. The customer insisted on having the crates air freight overnight to Seattle.
That seems expensive.
The shipping cost more than the project.
Did your dad pay for it?
Oh, no, my uncle paid for it. The client paid for it. That was crazy. And the weird thing is there was no reason for that, because when I got there,
they weren't ready yet.
Well, when I got there, the crates were there, and I got to see the effects of their expensive client-chosen shipping company. Of the 6 crates, only one was not damaged, and that was a 13-footer, which I thought would be the one damaged. That was flawlessly perfect. One of the crates had been delivered upside down. Don't know how. One had the skids ripped off of it, so it had no skids. One had been pushed off the back of the truck, or fell off the back of the truck. So it literally was standing on end. Like, they just left it that way. And the one that blew me away the most was through the 3/4-inch plywood, there were 2 holes for where forklift tines had punched through the plywood, through the foam, okay, but through 2 inches of concrete. That's how hard they must have
coming at that sucker full tilt.
Full tilt, yeah. So I basically had to redo
that whole project.
Yeah. So fortunately, I got paid twice. Unfortunately, I had to do it twice, which sounds like no big deal. But when you're in a business with other projects, this is so big, it just was completely disruptive, and it had a lot of implications. So it sucked, right? But that happens. So
just be aware of that. I mean, you can overcome it by insuring it, and know that. I think setting the expectations and knowing that eventually you're going to have to replace a job because the shipper did something stupid, is part and parcel of the process. I mean, I've shipped things and had them. One time I sold 5 tables and made 9 because they kept getting broken in transit, and it's part of it. I've got a project coming up for a restaurant in Los Angeles, and thankfully the molds will be pre-made and reusable, because I'm doing 3 different designs, 4 of each table, I think, is how it's working, or maybe 4 of 2 tables and 5 of one of them, because I think there are 13 tables. Anyway, regardless, I have the mold, so I can replace 1 or 2 if they need to be replaced, because shipping.
And that right there is another important thing to realize is, and this is true for even if you're not shipping, if you're making something complicated or you're making something repeatedly, make your molds so they're reusable more, especially more than just once.
Yeah.
Let's say you're doing I don't know, it doesn't matter what it is, right? But you spend all this time making this custom mold.
Yeah, for this, I'm going to use foam and fiberglass probably.
And in the course of, it takes you a long time to make it, especially if there's foam and fiberglass involved and you have to sand and put it together. But the mold itself is not that durable, and it doesn't survive demolding. You have to dig it out of the concrete to get it out or whatever. So basically you destroy it. Well, what if the casting didn't turn out right? What if, you're screwed, because if it took you a week to build a mold, and now, the concrete didn't mix well because you were in a rush, or you got voids where you don't want voids, or one of your workers broke it because they were flexing it wrong because they weren't thinking and they were in a rush, or even if you did everything right, it breaks on the way on transit, or the guy installing it, chips the corner, and now it's or breaks the corner off, or does something, right? And you have to redo it. You're literally starting from scratch all over again. And that customer is not going to pay for that.
No.
So when you're doing kind of molds like that, invest in something that you can reuse if you're going to have to do it more than twice, make it so you can do the mold 10, 20, 100 times. It's not that much more expensive.
No. Well, I think that is a great place to just put a cut in it, because we're an hour and 20 minutes in. And contrary to apparent popular belief, I need to go make some money. So
there you go. We both do.
Yep. So,
right.
Next week we've got a class. Excited about that. We're going to be doing some real projects in real houses. And by real houses, I mean this one.
Yep.
So, and we'll have a real client, my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So get excited. I know she is. So anyway, Jeff, I will see you on Saturday. I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we're not going to have a class, not a class. We're not going to have a podcast next week.
Right.
So we'll see you in 2 weeks, and hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.